Yeah, to have a smooth session, let's make sure if you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. And if you have any technical issues, please try to rejoin. Okay, before we get started, let's do a quick recap. Today is the fourth session of the industry working group, and we kicked off with these sessions back in October, where we talked about our vision along with an overview of the talent ecosystem, our milestones, and the journey ahead that we have. If you've missed any of our previous sessions, all the recordings and details are available on diceid.com/community page. So you can check it there. Okay. So as you know, our aim has been to evangelize a system of skill standardization and certification, which is aligned with NSQF. And for this, our NASCOM team, they completed 2 detailed sessions for us on the NOS framework. Those sessions are very important. I hope you've been able to attend that. And if not, as I mentioned, please check our recordings. We also have our YouTube channel. You can check that as well. So these standardization is very important in establishing a common language for skills. And this is not just a formality, but it's a commitment to ensure that our certifications are recognized across the industries in India, because it's going to serve as a benchmark for skills and qualification. Um, we see that some of the businesses, some of the members of the industry working group have not just completed their integration with ICE ID, but they have also moved to production environment and are already issuing certificates. So thank you all for your commitment in this mission. And there are also some of you who are still completing the onboarding journey with ICE ID. I request you all to complete that. And if you have any clarification or challenges, please reach out to Harshita. She's already been emailing the relevant links and details to your registered email IDs with us. So please take time, have your team complete the integration with DICE ID because we are completing a very important milestone soon. All right. So about today's agenda, we would be covering the fundamentals of schema and verification template. We do have a Q&A session towards the end, and I request you all to actively participate in that. All right. Okay, so let's begin our fourth session of the industry working group. I will now hand over to our chief architect, Hitashi. Over to you.
Thank you, Anita. Hi, everyone. Uh, so I'll just switch off my camera now so that you know you all are able to hear me better, right? At any point of time, if you face difficulties in looking at the screen or I mean screen sharing or hearing me, please post it on chat so that because I won't be able to see what all you are writing. So with that, I'll just switch off my camera, right? So yeah, so we'll start off by doing a recap of what Dice ID is, right? And just to refresh our memories, right? And then we'll go through the fundamentals of schema and verification template. This is a very important concept to understand, to appreciate why standardization is required, right? So that is next. Then, we have come up with a proposal of a standard skill credential that should be used by all our ecosystem players, right? Participants. So we'll go through each and every attribute of that skill credential with an explanation. And we will obviously be seeking your feedback, during the session and after the session. And then we'll also demonstrate how Dice ID console can be used to use the standardized skill credential, right? So this will be a live demo where we'll, not only issue credentials, but also verify credentials. So both issuing and verifying organizations, in on DICE ID ecosystem would know how to use the platform, right? And then we'll discuss the next steps followed by Q&A. All right. So again, this is something which you would have seen earlier, but for those who haven't, DICE ID is a platform which helps in issuing and verifying digital credentials, right? So who would issue a credential? A credential issuer, is an organization like yourself who's training, learners, students, etc., right? And based on that training, to represent that the completion of the training or the certification, they would issue a credential to the learner, or your customer. So who is we in DICE ID parlance we call it as the credential holder, right? So a credential holder is an individual who can receive multiple credentials from multiple credential issuers, right? As and when they complete their trainings or certification, right? So as part of the credential issuance process, there is a prerequisite of defining what that credential would look like, right? So that is done by creating a schema. So I'll talk about schema in detail, right? And schema is also important because it gets registered on blockchain, right? So that is the metadata of your of the credential that you are issuing. And once the credential is issued, the individual will have those credentials stored securely in their identity wallet, so which is nothing but the DICE ID mobile app, right? So they can have one or more credentials in their app, and once they are, let's say, they have those credentials, they could use it as a proof or an evidence of the fact that they are skilled in a particular area or technology, right? And they would present that proof to a verifying organization, right? So in our ecosystem, verifying organizations are all the recruiters and job portals who are seeking to screen the candidates, right? To know whether they are actually skilled in a particular relevant skill based on the job description they have, right? So the user, when they're applying for a job, or maybe later on for a higher education, right? With a educational institute, they could use their credentials as a proof to show that they are skilled in a particular technology, right? And that verification again happens against, by using information on blockchain, and it is based on a verification template. So we'll deep dive into that concept as well. DICE ID, is a platform, but it is based on building trust ecosystems, right? So it is very important that all the organizations, like yourselves are actively participating and collaborating, because whatever gets issued by a credential issuer is what will get verified by the verifying organization, right? And both have to adhere to a certain set of standards so that there is no mismatch, and the entire process of credential exchange happens smoothly, right? Of course, DICE ID is built on industry standards, but those are technical standards, right? So we are, based, our platform is based on World Wide Web, consortium specifications. So these are open standards which dictate, what the technical protocol should be when a credential is created, or when credential is submitted as a proof, or when it is verified, right? So those industry standards are already in place, but now we are further standardizing want to further standardize the vocabulary of that the credential, so that it is understood by all the participants, whether they are credential issuers or verifiers, and it makes the life of the credential holder easy, because they know that whatever credential they have issued, they would be able to use it as a proof with any of the verifiers in the ecosystem, right? So with that said, I'll now talk about schema, right? So when we say credential, right? So credential is something which represents uh, who you are, or I mean, for an individual, their identity or their capability, right? So skill is also one sort of capability. Now, to prove that somebody has, or to capture the information about of a credential, right? There has to be certain details that need to be included in it. For example, what is the name of the individual? You know, what would be their contact information, like an email or phone, and then what sort of skill they have acquired, right? Where did they acquire it from? Was there any assessment done? Right. So there are multiple such at when was it when did they complete their certification? Right. So all those you know attributes which define what a credential is, right? Or which tells more about that the credential is something which has to be captured in a format, and that format is or framework is called schema, right? So schema you can think of as is a data structure which defines what the credential would look like, right? So it comprises of attributes that represent the credential, and there is a structure to it in terms of, for example, name will be a text data type, or the issued on date will be of a data type which is date, right? So so that structure is something which is has to be defined on the ICID platform, and once that and this is a one time activity, and once it is defined, then any number of credentials can be issued based on that schema, right? So, and the schema, since it gets recorded on blockchain, right? So basically, we are not storing the actual data of the credential on blockchain, but we are storing the metadata of the credential, which is the schema on blockchain. So that provides a degree of trust, right? Because you know if since that the schema is on blockchain, so you know exactly what the structure of the schema should be, who created that schema, right? For example, an issue in organization, when they create a schema, so their information is also attached to that schema, right? So whenever somebody is trying to verify that a credential based on a schema, they also know that, okay, this schema has been created by a ecosystem participant who's who has been onboarded and is a trusted organization, right? So that information is available because all of that is contained in the schema, right? And that's why the credential can be independently verified, because the schema and the information that is available on blockchain can be queried by the verifying organization without contacting the issuing organization. Right now, let's understand, what the schema comprises of, right? So as I told you, it contains information about who created that schema, right? So, and this is important because, you know, uh, it, because verifier is not contacting the issuer directly. So this information about who created the schema is very important. And then, which individual or entity is the credential about, right? Whether it is being issued to a learner, or is it, I mean, in certain use cases, it can also be issued to a machine, right? So that information is also important. Credential data, this forms the core of the schema, right? So the examples that I gave, like the name, or the level of certification, right? Or the issue date. So there could be n number of attributes, and this is something which is completely configurable on Dice ID, right? So to start with, we will be providing a pre-created set of schemas so that you don't have to again go through the same process of adding those attributes, right? And that standard schema can be followed by everyone, right? So credential data is nothing but the name of the attribute and the data type of that attribute. that gets captured, right? And then the schema will also contain what sort of proof or what technique should be used, for verifying that particular credential, right? So this is more of a technical aspect, but all of these, all of this information gets recorded on blockchain. So, and once it is on blockchain, it is immutable, so it can be relied upon by anybody who wants to retrieve that information and use it for verification, right? So the key message here is that a schema is required to be defined as a prerequisite uh, before issuing a credential, right? And the schema should follow a standard vocabulary so that everybody can understand and use it for verification, right? So that's why using a standard schema is key, right, in this credential exchange process. Right. So now with that said, again, this is the concept. We'll be talking about specifics of skill credentials. So just in the subsequent slides, but I just wanted to stress upon the concept so that it is clear why we are doing this, right? Now, once the schema has been defined, the next step is that how will we enable its verification, right? So that's where verification template comes into picture. Right. So verification template again is a predefined framework where it is used to you know to find out whether this a credential that has been submitted as a proof, whether it is authentic, whether it has been tampered with or not, right? And and what the verification template helps in doing is it helps the verifying organization in specifying what attributes they need, right, to verify or validate a particular skill credential, right? So for example, if a recruiter wants to know that certain details, right, about an individual in terms of whether they've completed certification or not, right? Whether they've achieved certain score or not, right? Whether the certification was obtained in last 6 months, right? Or it was older than 1 year, right? All those kind of information is again a set of attributes, right? So which a verifier or let's say in our case, a recruiting firm would want to know about an individual, right? So those set of attributes is something which uh, they can define as a verification template, and the proof that is being submitted by the end user, right, who has that credential should match, right? So here the structure, data type should match the credential that they are submitting, right? So it is important that the verification template is created based on the standard schema that was defined by the issuer, right? Because let's say if issuer creates a schema which has, attribute as name, date and skill, right? But if the verifier is demanding attributes which are named full name, date of issue or skill name, right? Then there is a mismatch of the attribute names, and the data types also could be different, right? So that's why we are stressing on the fact that use dice id platform to create credentials based on the standard schema that we have provided, and use the same schema to create the verification template as well, right? So that there is no mismatch and we all are following the same standard vocabulary. Now, in terms of what the verification template contains, right? It contains, what kind of credential is to be verified, right? So there is some information about what standard it follows. So it follows the W3C standards. It will have certain criteria, right? So there is a lot of flexibility in how verification template can be defined. So a verifier can say that I want a credential only from a specific issuer, right? Or it could say that the credential that is submitted should adhere to a specific schema that was defined. Right, so those are again technical details, but we have made it simpler for you by providing the DICE ID console through which you can, create your template. And then it also contains information about, who this credential is about, right? The metadata about that, when was the, which date range should be acceptable, for whenever a credential is submitted as a proof, right? And then what sort of cryptographic evidence will be required to authenticate that credential? Again, this is technical part which is handled behind the scenes, right? But the reason for explaining this is that verification template is as important as the schema that was defined, right? Because only when both of the things are in place, right, the credential exchange will happen successfully. All right. So that's what I wanted to cover about schema and verification templates. And once we show the demo, it will be more clear as to what I'm referring to, right? And all this, let's try to understand how it will all work together, right? So so let's say, on one side we have the issuing
Hariprakash,
organizations. Yeah.
can we have a sort of poll for them on the previous two to understand their
Yes. 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 Sure. Sure. Yeah.
understanding?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for reminding. Yeah,
I'll launch the poll.
Okay,
yeah.
let's
So,
see if our audience has been paying attention.
so the first poll is about credential schema.
Yeah.
I think you all will see a pop-up on your screen now. Please read the question and submit your answers. Let's see how many of them get it right.
Yeah, I can't see anything, so you let me know when to move to the next
Yeah,
slide.
so
Yeah,
Hari will share the responses on the chat once everyone, let's give a few minutes for everybody to answer.
right.
So the question is, what is the use of schema in DICE ID? I hope everyone got the pop-up and are responding. Okay, 89% have said used to define the structure and attributes of a digital credential.
All right.
90% now. Okay, so we have an audience who's listening and who are familiar.
Great.
That's good.
Okay. Yeah, the
Okay.
next poll, Hari, you can uh, post this for verification template.
Yeah, Darsh. Must be up by now.
Yeah, so the next poll is, what is the use of verification template in DICE ID? Please submit your answers. Okay, majority have said used to validate the authenticity and integrity of digital credentials. But wait,
All
we're
right.
still getting more responses. Yeah, 100% response. We've got, they
Great.
say the same thing. Yeah, good.
Okay. All right. So, moving on, I think, yeah, once I cover this slide, I think I'll pause for the poll. So basically, yeah, so when we see all of it coming together, so the issuing organizations like edtechs and training institutes, when they create a schema or use a standard schema and issue a credential, that credential will look something like this, right? And once it is sent to the credential holder, they will scan a QR code in their email and get this credential on their phone. Now so these are some of the attributes. Again, these will vary based on the standard that we define, right? But the thing to note is that each of these attributes is following a certain name, right? Like email, course, percentage, category, etc. Right? And this credential can be used by the end user as a proof only when there is a verification template defined on the by the verifying organizations, right? Like the recruiters and employers, and it follows the some standard attributes which match the standard attributes for the schema, right? So once that is done, and again, the verification part also requires scanning of a QR code, and the result of the verification is sent to the verifying organizations, right? So here you can see that the standardization is important because it is linked to how the credentials which were originally issued by the issuing organizations get exchanged and are finally reaching the verifier, right? Through the credential holder, of course. So that's how it all comes together, and we'll explain more during the demo. I think there's a poll question for this part as well.
Okay, the poll is raised. So the attributes defined in a schema should be used to create verification template so that credential can be validated successfully. True or false? Got 8 responses so far. Requesting everyone else to please submit their responses. So far, everyone is saying true. We have an active audience.
Great. Yeah. Thank you all. So right. So now that we have, covered what is a schema, what is a verification template, why it needs to match and why it needs to be standardized. Let's again, go back to the whole process of standardization, right? So this is something which I have, used from the NSDC site, right? So here, for skill credentialing in India, right? So this is the process or standards continuum that they have defined, right? So whatever you heard in the previous sessions with NOS, right? So that is something which uh, you know will be used uh, to define the standard in terms of what sort of course curriculum should be set, right? And how, for example, if a Java certification is being done, what are the different aspects that need to be covered, for that, how the training should be conducted, right? So that is something which, which NSQF level to adhere to, right? What should be the curriculum of the training, and what should be the duration, etc. So all of these are something which NOS has defined, or NASCOM has defined, and then after the training is done, then the assessment has to be also completed by the end user. Now the assessment can be conducted by the training institute themselves, or there are other assessment agencies which are recognized, right? So that is another part of this entire process. And once the assessment has been completed, the credentials representing the skill of that individual need to be issued. So this is where DICE ID comes into picture, right? So the previous processes are something which NASCOM has defined based on the national occupational standards and aligning to the NSQF framework, which is National Skills Qualification Framework, right? And the end result of that process, following that process, will can be represented as a credentials on Dice ID platform, right? So again, the choice is obviously yours in terms of whether you follow that process or not. But irrespective of that, credentials will get issued on Dice ID platform using the standard schema and verification schema that we define, and the same schema will be used to create the verification template as well, right? So that the credential exchange is possible. So this is where Dice ID comes into picture, and that's what we are going to cover in the demo, right? So before we jump onto that, I'll request you all to complete another poll question.
Okay, the poll is raised. How can credentials be issued and verified that are based on NOS standards and assessment? I hope everyone's submitting their responses. We have received only 6 so far. Okay, requesting everybody to answer the poll, please. Okay, 92% are saying by using standards-based credential schema and verification template in Dice ID.
Okay. All right, so that's good. So moving on. So now, we know the concepts. Now, how do we, implement them, right? But before we do that, let's go through the proposal of the standard skill schema, that credential schema that we are proposing, right? So this is important because these are the attributes that credentialing issuing organizations will have to capture or have the data for for issuing a credential, right? So, and some of these attributes for those who are already using Dice ID platform would have already seen that we have a schema defined which captures some of these attributes, but we want to enhance it further, right? So that we are able to capture not just what the skill credential should contain, but also aspects of how it is aligning to the NOS and NSQF standards, right? So that's what this skill credential proposal will cover, right? And so I'll go through each attribute. Some of them are pretty obvious. So name is the name of the learner or the student who completed the training or certification, their email and phone number, right? Then the name of the skill, right? Whether it is Java, blockchain, AI, any of it could be any name, depending on your course training program. Cred URL, this is something which Dice ID platform provides as a feature where you can register your certificate template, in Dice ID, and it will get dynamically generated for that individual based on the credential data that you provide, right? And the link to that credential is to the certificate is something which will be embedded in the credential that gets issued, right? So that's what we call it as cred URL. So it is a link to a certificate based on the template that you have registered, and the template obviously can contain your logo, all of the layout that you want, right? Certification level, where, what sort of certification, whether it was a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. So that is again something about the certification that was awarded. Score or percentage is something which usually is associated with a certification, right? So certification ID. So if you are maintaining any internal identifier in your database, in your system. So that is also something which can be captured here, right? And then issued by is the issuing organization, right? So for you as a training institute, so this is where your name would be coming as to who is the training provider or the assessment agency, right? From where the user got the training or assessment done. When was it issued on? So the date of issue is obviously important, right? Because that represents when and how current that certification is. Valid till in certain cases would apply because if certain certifications are only valid for a certain duration of time, right? So and if not, then we can have uh, you know, uh, the certification date is 31st December 9999. So that is also an option. So these are, some standard attributes which will be required for any kind of skill credential, right? And again, if feedback is welcome on whether you need any additional attributes. So this is one set of attributes. Now continuing the same, uh, I'm going to move on to the next slide, right? So here again, talking about the assessment, so these set of attributes are based on whatever we have learned from NASCOM on the NOS standards, the NSQF levels, etc. Right? So these are additional attributes. So they talk about, or place, stress on where the assessment was completed and what was the result of the assessment, right? So if you are a training institute, but the assessment is being done by some other body, and they are providing a result, so that this is something which can be captured in these set of attributes, right? Next is the NSQF level, right? So NSQF has defined levels from level 1 to 10, 1 being the entry level, and 10 being the highest or expert level, which takes into consideration the skill, the competency, and certain soft skills as well. So if your training program is aligned to NSQF level, so that is something which you can define, specify here, right? And if not, then this attribute can be considered as not applicable. So that's what this NSQF level defines. QP code is a qualification pack, right? So based on the NOS standards, there are certain skill levels that have been defined, and that entire combination is represented as a qualification pack, right? So they've defined a qualification pack which says that this kind of training is applicable to this kind of job, right? And it requires these set of competencies to be completed. And then there are certain soft skills aspect also, right? So qualification pack, again, there is a QP code associated. So if you refer to the to the material provided or the links provided by NASCOM in previous sessions, there are qualification pack codes for each type of skill, right? And course that follows that standard curriculum, right? So QP code is, again, if you don't have QP code, it can be specified as not applicable. NOS reference is the reference to the standard, the overall standard that has been defined, right? So again, it has a certain code, so if your training program aligns to that NOS standard, then that can be provided. If not, again, this is something which can be not applicable. And lastly, there are, for each sector, right? For each industry, there are sector skilling councils. For example, for IT skills, NASCOM is the sector skilling council. Likewise, there are 34 other skilling councils. So if the SSC has, reviewed and endorsed your training program or assessment, right, that is something which can be captured in this attribute. And if and so based on where you are in that process, right? So this is another uh, information. And related job role is, for example, if it is a Java certification, right? Is it for a, you know, let's say backend developer or for a web developer, if the training program aligns to a particular job role that is, specified in the NOS standards. So that is also something which can be captured. All of these attributes are there as placeholders, right? And if you're not aligned to them, then obviously the value will be not applicable. But this is to ensure that whoever is aligned to that process, the credential represents the fact that the standard has been followed, and the verifier can give more weightage to those credentials which have, all of these covered or some of these covered, right? So that's why we have added these set of attributes also, right? So whatever you saw in the previous slide, right? So these are the very obvious attributes that need to be captured for any certification or training. But in addition to that, we also have captured these additional attributes to make it a complete skill credential schema. So it will cater to both types of organizations. So those who are aligning to standards and those who are yet to do that, right? So again, this is something, you know, uh, I know this has been, introduced for the first time. So we'll share this information. We'll await your feedback on this. In fact, at the end of the session also we'll capture, but you can also discuss internally and come back if you have any feedback on the attributes, or if you have a question on why a particular attribute has been included. Right. So that's about the proposed skill schema. Hari, do we have a poll question, or I can't recollect?
No, Hitarshi, that's
Okay,
it.
okay. So we are done with that. Okay. So now, yeah, enough of slides. And now I think we'll jump on to the demo, right? So uh, while we've understood the concept, but it is also important to understand how DICE ID can be used for this entire process, right? Of using a standards-based skill schema and then verifying it, right? So these 7 steps that I have listed is something which I'm going to demonstrate to you right now, right? So we'll go through. So this will also familiarize for those who have not yet tried DICE ID platform console. It will be, uh, you know, a kind of a training on how to use the DICE ID console. Okay, so let me switch to, um, let me get out of this, and now I'm going to share my browser, right? So and I'm going to share my phone screen as well, right? So console.uat.diceit.com is the URL for our for the UAT environment, where the DICE ID console is available, right? And uh, you know if you have not already done that, there is a very easy way to sign up. All you have to do is enter your name and email. You'll get an email from no reply at diceid.com, right, which will have steps on downloading the DICE ID app and getting your login credential, right, for the DICE ID console. So that is one. Once you have that, you can again come back here, and since I already have that login credentials, so those, so on the right hand side, you see the DICE ID app, right? That I have installed on my phone, and I have the login credentials. So I'm going to scan this QR code, right? So once I scan the QR code, the matching credentials will be found, and I will be able to submit it for authentication, right? So once I've submitted it, so what will happen is those credentials get verified against blockchain, and then I'm now into the console. I can see the dashboard, right? So this is the dashboard page, and there are many such options, many functionalities that is available here. If you're not sure where to begin from, then we have all these tutorials, right? So what to do for credential issuance, what to do for credential verification. Okay, so that is one. These links are available even without logging in, so you can familiarize yourself. with these tutorials. Now, how do we use the schema, right? Because as a credential issuer, if you want to issue a credential based on a standard schema, so where can I find it? So under the credentials tab, we have something called schemas, right? So these schemas, uh, you know, are uh, is what forms the basis of the credential. Now there are two options. You can create your own schema, right? And if you do that, there's no harm in that. But the only thing is that the other verifying organizations may not be aware of what schema you have created, what attributes you're using, right? So they may not be able to verify your credential if they don't create the corresponding verification template, right? So this is for creating your own schema. But if you want to follow the standard schema, so what we do for any new organization that is getting onboarded, we pre-create certain schemas, right? So as you can see, we have pre-created certain schemas here, right? A skill credential schema is there, community pass is there, right? So we pre-created for them, so you don't have to do anything here. But if you have already, created your account and you don't see that standard schema here, then you can create the schema by defining, let's say, let's say NOS standard schema, right? And provide a version number and choose one from the drop down of the existing standard schemas that the platform has defined, right? So here we have, the latest version of the DICE ID skill credential schema is 5.0, right? So that's what, we will be using for this demo. And as you can see, there are certain, attributes which are already defined for you, right? So all you have to do is click on create schema, right? So this is for those who are not able to see the standard schema, and and the schema attributes that we discussed today, that is also something which will appear in this list as once we finalize it, right? So now for the standard attributes, the schema that we discussed today, this is a schema that I've already created, right? So as you can see, all the attributes that were, I was showing on in the PowerPoint are already created, with the name and the data type, right? And we have multiple data types, for email, phone, we also have past date, future date. For example, issued on can be in the past but not in the future, right? Similarly, valid till should be in the future. So, and the rest of the attributes which represent alignment to NOS or NSQF are text values, so that, if you are not having those values, you can also specify it as not applicable, right? So this is the schema that we have defined. Again, repeating myself that this standard skill schema will be provided to you, when you log into the DICE ID console, so you don't have to really create it yourself, right? So that is about the schema. Now, once the schema is there, the next thing to do is issue a credential, right? So now credentials can be issued in multiple ways, right? One is to issue one credential through the console UI itself. Second is by integrating with our APIs, right? So we have a tutorial where we explain how to use our APIs. We have shared that link earlier also, and we'll do it again. And then the third way is to, if you don't want integration, right, is through batch issuance, right? So batch issuance basically, allows you to upload a CSV file, right, which contains information about the credentials, or the certifications that you completed for your users, right? And once you upload that data file, it will get processed and the credential will get issued, right? So the first step to that is that, you need to follow a standard format, right, of how the data should be defined, and how you would want to notify your end users about the credentials. So we have two options of email and text message. So I'm going to select email, right? And then uh, the the structure of that CSV file will be based on the schema. So here, if I select the standard skill schema that I had shown you earlier and download the file. So basically, a CSV will get downloaded, which will, contain all those attributes, right? So one such file I've downloaded already, and I have, populated it with some data. So I'm going to open it. Okay, so here, as you can see, I've opened the CSV in Excel, right? And this is some data about, you know, you know, of what the credential, should contain, right, in terms of values, right? So here, uh, what what is important is that the format of certain fields is something which need to be taken care of, right? So and for example, phone number needs to be in a format which starts with +91, right? So that is one, and then I'm going to also change, let's say, some of the values here, let's say, and the date format is also important. Here we are following sorry, DD MMM YY, right? So this is the format we will follow for the issued date as well as the valid till date. Okay, so now my CSV is ready, right? With the data which represents the skill of an individual, and then there are certain attributes which align to the NOS standards, the qualification pack, etc. So if I have one, I can specify that or keep it as not applicable, right? And once the data is ready, so I'm going to save it. Now I'll go back to the portal, Dice ID console. So since my file is ready, I'm going to go to upload data file, right? I can define this is skill batch, 22nd November. Right, this is the label which I can provide for the batch. It's up to me. The medium of invitation again will be email because that's what we selected initially. And here in Dice ID, we have an option of defining an email template, right? So the email template is something which will be used while sending the email notification to the end users, right? So it will contain certain text, which you can define, right? So and set the context, right? So for example, I have one email template, and if I don't want to define a template, I can use the default email template, right? So let me quickly show you what the email template looks like, right? So here, while creating the template, you can define, what the template is for. This is for obviously issuing a credential and onboarding the customer, right? You can define the template name, the subject. You can have your own company's logo, and the text also is something which can be contextual, right? For example, if you are, issuing a batch of credentials for, say, Java, then you can have that contextual text saying that congratulations on completing your Java certification, and this is a mail for to issue your credential that represents your certification, right? So all of that is completely configurable. You can define as many email templates as you want, and once the email template has been defined, that can be used during credential issuance, right? So that is one part, right? So here, while while selecting email, I have the option of also specifying the email template. Okay, so let me just say batch 22 November, right? Another aspect is now we also need to set up auto issuance, because once the user receives the email and scans the QR code in the email, so they would get a credential, right? So which credential should they get? So that is based on the schema. So here again, we'll use the same standard skill schema. Now that skill schema contained a credential URL as well, right? Cred URL was one of the attributes, and that's why we also need to specify the certificate template. So certificate template is again something which represents the actual certificate, right? So in Dice ID, you are free to register the template. So for example, if you can see, I have already registered certain templates, which I can use while issuing a credential. So if we go to the certificate template screen, right, and let's say I want to create a certificate template which represents, mm, let's say, Java certificate template, right? And I can choose any background, image. So this will be typically a blank template of your certificate, right? So which contains your logo, signatures, etc. So I can select that. So it will get uploaded, and you should see this here. Now uh, I can place a QR code which represents the link to this certificate and can be used for verification. And how do I know where the QR code will get placed, right? So I'll just click here, go to the certificate designer, right? And I can, you know, place the QR code anywhere, right? So it is powered by Wipro Dice ID. I can resize it as I want and change the position as well, right? Once I've done that, I can click on save, right? Likewise, which other attributes should be dynamically populated on the certificate? So that's where I'll use my standard skill schema again, list the attributes, right? And of course, I don't want all the attributes should to be shown on the certificate. So I'll disable all. I'll only select few of them. For example, name of the student should be shown, skill name should be shown on the certificate, and when it was issued on, right? So, and for each one of them, I have the option of using the certificate designer to place that attribute, right? So this is a placeholder. I can resize it. I can change the font, right, to anything I want. I can, I can change the font size. I can change the font color. So all that is, flexibility is available. So as you can see, the font colors, size, everything has changed, right? And once that is done, I just have to save it, right? So again, certificate template has to be defined only one time, and it can be used in to issue multiple credentials, right? So this is how we have to follow the process for setting up or registering a certificate template. Okay, so I've covered email template, certificate template. This is all to provide flexibility on while issuing the credential, right? So going back to batch issuance, we were talking about, the batch that we want to execute. Let's say I'm going to use a default email template. I've now selected the standard skill schema, right? And that schema also contains a certificate. So I'm going to use a, skill certificate template that I've defined, right? Now, uh, the file which I had shown here, the CSV file with data, and the attribute names which match the schema. So I'm going to upload that, right? So once I click on bulk upload, I can select that schema and click on upload, right? So this the CSV will get validated, and if it is and then in the batch upload history is where you will see the result, right? So for example, something which I just uploaded, it got completed, and I can download the log to see what is the status of each and every record, right? So I had only uploaded one record, but you could have 100 records. The limit is 10,000, right? So you can, in one batch, you can process as up to 10,000 certification records, right? So uh, since it was my email in that batch file, I should have received an email from Dice ID, right? So let me go to my Gmail and click on refresh. See, as you can see, there is an invitation to receive credentials, right? So this is based on the email template. Since I was using a standard format, this is the text. But if you use your own email template, this text can be changed, right? this text that you can see, here you can provide more context to your user as to what the credential is about, why it is being issued. And then there are certain instructions which are standard, which involves download the ID app and scanning the QR code, right? So that's what I'm going to do now from my phone, right? So once your user receives this email, they will download the ID app and then scan this QR code, right, to receive the credential. So basically, this establishes a secure connection with the ID platform. And once that is done, then it starts downloading the credential, right? So and it also checks whether the credential is matching the schema that is defined on via blockchain, right? So the mobile app actually communicates with the blockchain to validate whether the it is based on a schema that is already defined, right? So once the schema once the credential has been downloaded, it will open like this, right? So as you can see, let me maximize this. So this is the credential with the values which your end user will be able to see, right? The credential holder, and there is an option to download the certificate as a PDF, or they can also open this in the phone browser or share this link with others, right? So as you can see, based on the certificate template, some of the name, the skill name, right, the date of certification, all of that has been dynamically populated. There is a QR code also that is available on the certificate, right? All this because I had used the certificate designer to register the blank template and set it up, right? So so now with that done, the credential has been obtained, right? So we have completed the credential issuance part based on the standard schema. Okay, now going back to the console, how do for the verifiers, this is important for the verifying organizations. How do I set up verification? Correct. So that's where verification templates come into picture, right? So to create a verification template, you need to click here. You can say NOS compliant verification template, right? So I'm creating one now, but this is something for new organizations who are getting onboarded. You will see that standard verification template is already created for you. If not, you can follow this process. Here, this email is something, if you want to get notified of the verification result. So this is the email that you can specify, right? And then there are certain, URIs that can be added if you are embedding the QR code in your website, right? So here you have to whitelist those URLs so that the QR code will get rendered, right? Now, and all of these steps are explained clearly in the tutorials that we share, right? So here you can to create your verification template, you can select public schema. So this will allow you to search for schemas that other organizations have defined. So I'm going to just search for the schema that I had defined, and I'm going to select that, right? So as soon as I select that, the attributes that were defined in the schema got populated here, right? Now you're free to choose which credential attribute should be included in the verification template, right? So for example, if I am not looking for NOSQF level and QP code, I can omit it and then create the schema verification template, right? But if I want to retain it, there is no harm. So that means whoever is submitting the credential needs to have these attributes. The value could be not applicable, but these attributes should be present, right? So with this, I create this verification template, right? So as you can see, the verification template is already created, right? And you can see the details of which contains all these attributes that are coming from the standard schema, right? So it also says which schema it is based on. Okay. So so now how do I quickly check whether this verification template works or not, right? So we have provided a mechanism to test this. So I can click on verify here. This will show a QR code. So I again go back to my app, Dice ID app. And when I scan this QR code, right, it will try to find the matching credentials for this particular verification template, because this QR code represents the attributes required in the verification template, right? So since I had that credential, I'm being prompted to submit it as a proof. So once I submit it, what will happen here is that that proof will get submitted, be validated against blockchain, and I'll see the verification result here. All right, so it says verification template successfully tested, and whatever credential attributes were provided, are visible here, right? So we are displaying them here. So this is what you saw, as a credential on the phone as well, right? So that's how you can quickly test it. Now to actually use this verification template in your app, there are two options, right? One is you follow our tutorials, and embed the QR code using this sample JavaScript and HTML we have provided in your website, and the QR code will get displayed there, and anybody can scan and submit their credentials. That is one way. Another way is that we host that QR code for you, right? So let me open another tab, right? So I'm going to copy paste this. Sorry. So this URL that is available, right? Verification link is something which you can send to your users as via email or displayed on your website. And once they see this, they will know, they have to submit their credentials as a proof, and the organization is your organization name, and the results will be emailed to your email ID, right? So by scanning this QR code, uh, you know, uh, using again their Dice ID app. So let me show you how that is done. Right. So again, if I scan this QR code, the same thing will happen. It will look for matching credentials based on this verification template, right? And the user will submit it. And once the user submits it, the results of the verification will be emailed, email, right? So it is verifying the credential, and then these emails have these set of attributes have been emailed to the ID that I had registered with the verification template, right? So this is a way of verifying without doing anything on your website or your so because this verifier.diceid.com is something which we are hosting, right? So the result, you can still receive the verification results by through this technique. Okay, so yeah, all the information what I have just said is available in the tutorials, right? So we'll again share the links with you. So this is how we have completed all the steps that I had highlighted here, right? Using the platform console to create a schema or use a schema that is already defined, set up the certificate template. We also spoke about how email template can be created to provide more context. Then the credential was issued, and I scanned that or caught that credential on my Dice ID app as a credential holder, and finally we are able to create a skill verification template and submit the credential as a proof, right? So that completes the entire process, of issuance as well as verification. All right. So that's that. And now, of course, now we need to talk about the next steps, right? And now that you have understood the concepts, you have seen the demo as to how to use these credentials and verification template. The next step is to provide feedback on the standard, skill schema that we had shared, right? Which had the attributes which represented the skill, not only the skill, but also spoke, the attributes which were related to NOS and NSQF standards, right? So that is something you can email it to Anita or Harshita or whoever the email you have from our team. You can send your query or feedback via email. We have also launched community.diceid.com. So this is a collaboration platform for our ecosystem participants, right? So this is something which is up and available. I can show you very quickly how it looks like. Just give me a sec. Right. So this is, this is like a, a collaboration site, right? So here, you can sign up and for once you sign up, you will get a Dice ID community pass credential, right? So you can use that to log in. So I'm already logged in, right? And one of the topics that we have, created here for discussion is the standard schema, right? So the topic name is, schema standardization, and whatever attributes I had described are already available here. So you can provide your feedback by replying to this particular topic, provide your suggestions, but for that, yeah, you'll need to sign up and sign in to community.diceid.com. So this is another medium which we are going to increasingly use more and more to, facilitate collaboration and discussion amongst ourselves, amongst the ecosystem participants, right? So that is one. So once the feedback is there, we'll obviously refine and share the modified schema with you. And our target is to, finalize the schema and verification template by 5th of December, right? So, and then we'll also ensure that that standard schema is available in Dice ID console. So whenever you log in, you are able to see that standard schema, for your organization, right? So that you don't have to go through the process of adding all these bunch of attributes and all of that. So for ease of use. And then, we obviously expect that all of us will adopt that schema, right? And start issuing credentials because, we would like you to, start using Dice ID platform ASAP and issue and verify credentials, right? So that's about the next step. And uh, I think I've covered all the topics and we can move on to Q&A.
Thanks, Hitashi, for that detailed session. Okay, so if anybody has questions, please unmute yourself and or you can post it on the chat, however you're comfortable.
Yeah, so I'm going to stop presenting so that I can see the chat window.
Yeah, floor is open for questions. Anybody?
No, I think it is very clear. I think, at least for me, it was clear. Thank you.
Great.
So
Anybody else?
yeah, this is Suresh. So the expectation is we review the template and maybe suggest any changes and also start using the template on the UAT environment. Is that understanding right?
Yes.
Yes.
So basically, see, we already have one skill credential template available, but now what we are proposing is additional set of attributes which will capture the NOS and NSQF aspects, right? Like the NSQF level, qualification pack and all that. So yeah, please do review, provide your feedback whether you think this attribute is useful or not. It may not be immediately applicable to all because, not everybody would have conformed to that process that NASCOM defines, right? but this is something which we have to design with from a futuristic perspective, right? That if we have a placeholder for that, then people who are, or organizations who are compliant can adhere to that. So yeah, so please provide your feedback. Once we have got feedback, we'll send out a notification saying that this is the final set of attributes, and we'll also notify you when that standard schema is available in in the UAT environment, right? So please look out for those notifications. And yeah, and I would suggest start using the UAT environment nevertheless, right? Because to get familiar with how it works. If there is any some doubts, you can reach out to us if there are any issues. So all those things get sorted, and by the time we'll standardize our schema and then be ready to go to production, right? So yeah, please do start using console UAT environment. Any which way you want, right? So and yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
We have two questions posted on chat. I think from Periphery team, they're asking, are the credential schema mandatory? We don't use score, percentage, valid till, phone number, certification level, etc.
Right. Right. So, see some of the if you think that a particular attribute is not applicable for you, right? So if it is a text field, then you can obviously specify not applicable, right? And if it is a number field, so we have consciously kept even marks or score as text because so that you can specify not applicable, right? And let's say if you don't have a expiration date for the credential, so in valid till you can provide 31 December 1999, right? Yeah. So that it is valid pretty much for for a very long time, right? So you can do that, but so the values can be changed based on applicability, but it's important to use the same schema so that it when your credential holder tries to submit that as a proof with a verifying organization, they are able to do that, right? Because if you use a completely different schema which others are not following, then the person who has the credential will not be able to use it as a proof, right? With the verifiers. So that's the reason we are stressing. Otherwise, you're free to use any schema structure you want, right, to represent it, the credential. So there is no binding. We are not restricting anybody, but we are stressing on the fact to follow a standard here. And yeah, so I think I've already shared the tutorial link on chat, but we'll send it via email also, right? So whether you want to issue a credential or verify a credential, all of those, so those key tutorials, whether if you want to integrate with APIs, so all of that is covered in those specific tutorials. And if you want to follow this, whatever I covered today, that link will be available on YouTube, right? So this session's recording will be available on YouTube. So if you don't like reading tutorials, you can follow the video as well. Yeah.
Yeah, besides the video and the documents, there are a lot of, we also have a great team who's available always for technical walkthroughs. So I think from now onwards, the critical stage is for, like I said in the beginning, for all the businesses to please complete your onboarding with DICE ID, complete your integration. Again, I'd like to thank all the businesses who have completed the integration and are already in the production environment issuing the certificates. But for the ones who haven't and yet to finish their onboarding, please do so. We have Harshita, Shruti, Kalyan, Prachi. We have a great team who are there to support everybody. If the documentation and the YouTubes are not sufficient, they can give you a hand-holding and a walkthrough session.
Sure. Now, on that aspect, so the DICE ID onboarding is quite different from, if at all my courses are not listed or recognized by NASSCOM yet. I think these two are two separate steps, if my understanding is right. So to be onboarded or to be aligned with the NASSCOM, the NSQF, that is a separate thing. I can initiate a separate thread, and uploading the documents and getting onboarding on the DICE ID. These are two separate things. Is my understanding right, Anita and team?
Yes, they are correct. That is right. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to get your courses aligned with NASSCOM, you can follow that framework definitely. But then while issuing your certificates, there is a certain set of standardized, as Hitachi explained. So
Sure.
following that, so at least when you're giving the certificates to your candidates, it's important that, that is followed. So as I mentioned earlier, our objective is not just to issue any certificate, right? But we want to have them universally accepted by all employers. So it's going to be like a concrete proof of a candidate's qualification. And if all of us follow a standardized format, then that's it. That is the success of our mission as part of being in this industry working group, right?
Sure. Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Any more questions, clarifications?
Anita, I was not clear about the last question, last point, which Suresh had raised, and the answer. So what we are saying is, so NASSCOM, the two sessions that we had, that is a recommended good to have format, but not a must have format, right? For DICE ID integration. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, because you see, we can't say must have because government itself has not said must have till now, right? So what NCVT has done, National Council of Vocational and Educational Training, they have directed all the sector skilling councils like NASSCOM to follow or propagate these set of standards, right? Which say that what a curriculum should look like, what an assessment should look like, and if somebody completes that assessment and training, they will get a credit which will be counted in the national credit bank, right? So that is the whole cycle they have defined, right? But the thing is that the mandate, as and when it comes from NCVT, uh, that's where we will be also be able to enforce, right? So DICE ID is a platform which allows you to issue credentials and verify, right? But we are not, mandating it because that mandate has to come from top down, right? And we obviously want you to help you issue credentials uh, any which way, right? So, and obviously following the standards will help in the longer run, right? So we have the placeholders, and as and when you complete the NOS recommended process and all, you can start issuing credentials by populating those fields as well, right? Till that time, it can remain not applicable.
Yeah, and also to add, please remember that we are all here to support the government of India's vision, and that's by accelerating the implementation of such initiatives. So we are simply creating a seamless, uh, more efficient ecosystem of talent pool, right? So we want all of you to carry that vision because we want to lead the way in a digital change, right? Rather than a physical document, a certificate. So hence we are supporting this standard ways to share credentials, whether it's for a skill, a training, or a work, right? Because we are all working towards, we are creating a workforce in India which is more skilled and powerful digitally, right? And that's what we want everyone to sort of carry forward. I hope that's clear. All right. Any more questions, clarifications, or? Right. Okay, great. So thanks everybody again for joining this session. Please remember, for the next 2 weeks, we will keep standards open for review and feedback. So send us your inputs. You all have my email address. Please write to us, or if you need a call, further discussion, we can definitely schedule that. And as Hitachi mentioned, our community page is now open for everyone to start collaborating. So please get onto it, get your DICE ID community pass, and start working on the UAT environment, complete your integrations, because after 2 weeks, when we publish the standards officially, then we would request everybody to be the voices of the industry and start issuing and verifying the credentials through DICE ID. Okay, great.
Thank you.
So thanks again for your time and attention, and wishing everyone a good day ahead. Thank you.
You are.